Speaking of Frank Sinatra, you know where there is not a picture of Frank Sinatra? In the Cuomo house.
Oh. There might be one.
Well, they might like one, but they probably had to buy it.
Yeah, Frank didn't come by.
Yeah.
No. Although he may have spent some time with Mario, I gotta say, back in the day. It's very possible.
Yeah, Mario is a different story. Chris.
This is I started off with the Andrew Cuomo thing. And AndrewCuomo.com and thought to myself, there's no way that he's going to step down. He's going to get thrown out of office because I am a pessimist.
Right.
Even though he obviously deserved to be thrown out of office.
And maybe a little jail time.
Perhaps.
A little jail time.
When you happen to kill thousands of old people, generally speaking, that's the outcome.
You do go to jail.
However, in this case, no. I don't think he's going to prison.
Yeah,
it's possible. Yeah. He wound up getting thrown out, kind of more related to the sexual harassment part of his incredible
Which is
legacy.
so much more important than the killing of old people.
Yeah, both are important, but the killing of old people usually, just the whole life and death thing tends to outweigh almost anything
really
he
does. But not in his case.
Yes.
Anyway,
he was, of course, thrown out of office. And one of the things that popped out of that little scandal was Chris Cuomo's assistance in the matter. And I said this a bunch of times. People kind of gloss over it, but the first words you heard from Andrew Cuomo about this scandal that CNN was covering in real time, they were covering the Andrew Cuomo scandal.
Yeah.
When he made that speech, those words were written by Chris Cuomo. That is known. Chris Cuomo was writing speeches that his own network were covering out of the mouth of his brother as if it was news.
But
their own host was writing the news.
But they knew that.
I don't think they knew it at the time.
At the time.
Now, that did come out.
I noticed the pause there. I don't think they knew it at the time because there is slight doubt that maybe they knew it.
It's one of those things that they didn't know it on the record at the time.
Right,
How about that?
Okay, yeah.
Now, they may have known it at the time.
Plausible deniability.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about this is that more and more detail has come out. And we, of course, saw multiple statements by Chris Cuomo on the air.
Correct.
Where he addressed and said things that he did do and that he did not do.
Yeah.
Stuff like he did not use sources, for example,
exactly,
to go after the women who were accusing his brother.
That would be reprehensible.
Reprehensible. By the way, they released some texts from Andrew Cuomo, or from Chris Cuomo, directly to Melissa DeRosa, who is the top aide / henchman of Andrew Cuomo.
And what did they say?
Well, he said he was using his sources to get information on women who were accusing.
Isn't that what he told CNN that he wasn't doing?
He didn't do. Yes.
Yeah,
and in fact, the quote, one of the women, it's going to be very difficult for the average person to keep track of all of the women that made accusations against Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo, who was also accused, and that just seemed to have gone away completely. But Andrew Cuomo was accused by a woman who did not accuse him of some of the criminal type stuff that went on with some of the other accusers, but accused him of making her feel uncomfortable, grabbed her bare back, pulled her in for an unwanted kiss forcefully in front of cameras. There's cameras, there's video of this occurring.
Don't believe your eyes.
Now, she was at a wedding. This was at a wedding.
Yeah.
A woman who did not know Andrew Cuomo, but just was like a supporter and a fan, wanted to meet him. And then he, of course, took advantage of that situation because he's a piece of...
No tongue.
No.
But go ahead.
So this accusation comes out. 3 days later, Chris Cuomo texts Melissa DeRosa, the aide, and says, "I have a lead on the wedding girl."
Could have been a completely different wedding girl.
Could have been. Maybe they needed a girl at a wedding, and he was looking to book someone.
May have been the flower girl.
Of course, what he says is, no, he was checking with his sources, but just trying to understand when new information might be coming out, not trying to dig up dirt at all. Not at all.
So what are the Vegas odds on him losing his job with CNN?
They've changed. They've changed.
I
think the tide is turning, just like it did with Andrew. Now, of course, Chris has committed all sorts of various sins against journalism, and against CNN. And I want to be clear here. I don't think CNN has any journalistic integrity when it comes to Chris Cuomo.
Oh, no, I
They
can
have
guarantee
zilch.
that. No,
There is a part, though, at some point, a person embarrasses you so often, so dramatically, that you feel like you need to take steps. And CNN has now announced...
You think that CNN is at that point?
Well, let me clarify, because you will have insight in this, and I hope you are discreet in the way that you talk about this.
Okay.
Is what I will say.
All right.
So
probably not going to happen.
Probably not.
Yeah.
All right. This is a bit of a risk. So
pretty great risk.
We're out on a limb a little bit here.
All right, go ahead.
So first of all, CNN has launched another investigation.
Another investigation.
They're going to go look through all of these texts and see what Chris has done.
Yeah, all over it.
There's a bunch of stuff in there. We can't go through all of it at the moment. But I will say, if they are honest, obviously, they would fire this guy.
But they're not honest.
Not only has he broken every journalistic rule and made a mockery of journalism, he also has lied to his employer multiple times and embarrassed them multiple times. And in addition to this, does a terrible television show. And CNN should look at this as a blessing from God to get out of the contract, right? Like, just as an excuse, just fire him because you could say, gosh, we didn't know he was so bad, and instead save your money.
What you were saying here is that somebody in the hallway should go, right? Moral turpitude.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad that's in the contract?
Right, exactly.
Right,
now,
okay.
I want to take a step that I think you're going to understand here. Maybe not the entire audience will understand the specifics, but let me explain the generalities.
I can't wait.
Every once in a while, you will see.
Wait. Because I want to be able to respond to this right away. Let me do a commercial because I can't wait. I can't wait. And I want all the time in the world to respond.
You watch cable news. You might be a fan of cable news.
Right.
And you see the hosts have on great guests from time to time. Glenn Beck comes on a show. You're like, wow, I like when Glenn Beck comes on the show. He's a big, famous talk show host, has a lot to say.
Right.
He's pretty interesting. And then the next guest comes on, and you're like, wow, that person is a real expert in their field, and I understand why they're on. And then every once in a while, someone like Jeffrey Toobin comes on the air. Here's a guy who was in the middle of a Zoom call and whips the thing out and goes to town and is back on the air in like a couple of months. It's just a weird thing. Normally speaking, that would not be the case. And you might say...
Well, because it does make everybody a little uncomfortable when you're like, isn't that the guy who was playing with himself?
Yes. And when he tries to say, oh, can you believe what an idiot this person was?
Yeah,
it's hard to take him seriously, right?
A little difficult.
It is difficult.
Right.
And you might say, why does that happen? And you'll notice it particularly with legal analysts on cable news channels, okay? Jeffrey Toobin, back on the air. Odd, right? And a lot of people chalk that up to, oh, well, he's liberal. Well, okay, that might be part of it. But let me propose another.
I'm beginning to think I might know a story that you don't want me to tell.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe multiple stories.
Right.
So what happens often at cable news networks is there are lots of executives who work there, and they have issues in their own personal lives which need legal attention. And it's sometimes convenient to pull in a legal expert who happens to work for the channel up to your office to have a little conversation and throw out maybe a little personal legal conversation, a little consultation off the books in a normal, friendly way. And often
might even be incentive to keep their mouth shut on things that they've done by just having them, hey, you should be famous.
Yeah, maybe you should come. What if we book you on all these shows all the time?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's good because your legal analysis is important. And let me ask you this question on the side about my personal life that's sensitive. And so often, and I know no specifics here, of course, but sometimes these legal experts have a way of worming their way into these networks because they give legal advice to very important people who are there. Now, if you happen to be executive at CNN and you happen to, let's say, take legal consult from a Chris Cuomo at some point while he works there, it might be difficult for you to fire him because he's giving legal consult and PR consult about a sensitive issue to someone else. Because if you fire him, he might just bring up or leak that information to the media. And believe me, he in particular would not be above such a thing, in my opinion. So
Now,
you might notice this happening from time to time where you see, wow, this legal analyst is terrible on the air.
What's weird is I have a very specific example of this happening.
Really? Maybe multiple examples.
No, one really.
Okay. The point is,
really, man, let me just see if it's the same one you're thinking of.
I can think of a couple.
Okay.
And I'm sure one of them is this. There's no reason to go into specifics on it at all. My point here is that this is a common occurrence and may be at play with both Jeffrey Toobin and Chris Cuomo, in my opinion.
Okay, in your opinion. I think that's crazy unless you know what has happened to us.
Well, again, Where
I was doing an interview with said legal analyst, that is not said, we taped it in advance, and it was one that was suggested that he was a good guy to go to. And I ripped him to shreds. To shreds. I think I threw him out of my studio, okay? If I remember right. Did I?
Something like that.
Yeah, I threw him out of the studio and said, because I said to him during the interview, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? That is completely... and it was just odd. And I threw him out, and he said, do you realize who I am? I was like, I don't give a crap who you are. That strangely never aired. There was somebody in the control room that said, that is not ever airing. And we realized that's why that guy sucks so much and is still on the air.
So these things do
happen.
Occur. And look, I think it's possible Chris Cuomo has finally pushed far enough for whatever protection he's been able to acquire over the years. It may not be able to protect him anymore. I mean, this is so far over the line, not even just as a journalist, but as a human being. I mean, this is so far over the line. So maybe CNN will act here, but if they don't, I will have a couple of guesses as to what is occurring.
So, it's weird, Stu. And I feel bad for Chris Cuomo at this point.
Do you?
I do, because he's not the Godfather. He's Fredo. So let me just say this to Fredo. If they invite you to go fishing on a lake, don't do it. I just want to offer that little bit of advice. Don't go fishing with your brother's friend.